On behalf of RPO's biodiversity team, Partners for Water, Wageningen University and the Black Jaguar Foundation, welcome everybody. And also welcome to our friends online who are joining. My name is Claudia Schutte. I'm working in the team Climate and Water at RVO. And I'm also involved on the work of mainstreaming biodiversity and also part of the organization of this lunch lecture. Before I introduce you to our main speakers of today, some practical issues for those that haven't noticed yet, but this lecture will be recorded. So if you don't like to be visual in the screen, but please make sure you're sitting on the other side in this room, or if you are joining online, switch off your camera. Also, please switch off your mobile phones because we have a very interesting lunch lecture and you don't want to be disturbed by annoying noises. And last but not least, today we will have two lectures. First, we start with a lecture by Ben Valks of the Black Jaguar Foundation. Welcome, Ben. And second, a lecture of Marielos Tenya-Claros, and she is professor at Wageningen University. We ask you kindly to save all your questions for after the two presentations. So we will conclude and then have a Q&A after the two presentations. And if you're joining us online, please make sure that you put all your questions in the chat. My colleague will follow up on that. So how about today? As you all will know, biodiversity and water are preconditions for all life on Earth, also for us human beings. It's the water we drink, the food we eat, the air we breathe, and of course all the materials we think we need. We use all comes from nature. But looking at worldwide trends, we see that nature is at serious risk due to human interventions like land use change, overexploitation, pollution, climate change. Historic high levels of biodiversity loss have been reported. And this is not only an intrinsic loss of biodiversity, the beauty of nature itself, but also a serious threat for the survival of mankind. We depend on it for food production, for water quality, for climate regulation, but also for erosion prevention, and so on and so on. The Global Biodiversity Framework and last year's Conference of the Parties in Cali, in Colombia, put biodiversity back on the global agenda, and that's perfect. But putting it on the agenda is one thing. Restoring nature in practice is another. So last year on International Biodiversity Day, we had a motto, and the motto was be part of the plan. But I thought, how about the action? The motto should be part of the action. We have to think, do, and organize ourselves in a different way. Because, and I put it in the words of our friend Albert Einstein, we cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when created them. Our first speaker, Ben Valks, knows from first-hand experience what it means and what it takes to restore nature. He will take us through his ambitious journey to set up and execute one of the largest reforestation projects on Earth, the Araguaia Corridor. Biodiversity corridor. I'm sorry, that's the most important part, of course. In the heart of Brazil, he will explain from practice how to think, do, and organize things in a different way and highlight the importance of applying a holistic approach. It's an approach that combines ecological restoration, social impact, and economic resilience. And that's to create a sustainable future for nature, communities, and also for businesses. So I won't keep you longer in suspense. Then may I invite you to the floor and give your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Wonderful. Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here together with my colleague Julia of the Black Jaguar Foundation. I first would like to thank the biodiversity team of RVO, Claudia and team, wonderful. And you cannot see this beautiful lady, but we are working actually for our future, because in a few months, more people will come, right? And we always say we work for the future generation, so we will survive, but I don't think in 40, 50 years, it's probably, or even 30 years, It's a complete different situation. So it's a pleasure to share with you in just 25 minutes work which we did for the past 10 years. So originally I'm from Holland. I lived in the forest, and that being born in the forest, I think, keeps always a connection. And after business school, I set up a company, worked 14 years very hard in the Middle East. And then I thought, there's more life than wonderful countries like Iraq, Iran. I think there's more than only business. And then one of my dreams was to see a black jaguar in the wild. So I first tried 1 week without result, then 1 month without result. And then I spent 5 months in the trees. I hired jaguar biologists, jaguar hunters, not to shoot one, but just to learn one. And I had the honor to actually see almost all animals from the Amazon, except the black jaguar. So, but what I did see is the enormous destruction of the Amazon and the Cerrado. Actually, you cannot imagine, but driving for 9 hours straight on a road, flat, and 1.5 years before, there used to be hills, there used to be intact forest, with all like paradise for the planet. Actually, if we talk about biodiversity, it is the most intact biodiversity, or one of the most vital biodiversity ecosystems. So this gave me such a shock, and I think, what do you do with all the money? I think it's better to leave real impact. So for sure, it's not my personal goal, but the goal with the Black Jaguar Foundation. But I also hope a little bit with the goal together with you, that we all become billionaires. Okay, but maybe not billionaires in money, but we will make it together into billionaires in native trees. Of course, this project will not save the world, but I think, or we hope, that it will at least give a great example how a biodiversity corridor can turn into a water corridor, and can turn into a social impact corridor. So we have only one mission, is to help restore the balance between nature and humankind. And all our work is focused only on one project. It's the Araguaia Biodiversity Corridor. We say it's one of the longest biodiversity corridors on Earth, but for sure there's no competition. We hope there are many, many, many more corridors. It's just one example. But it gives you an idea that it is quite large. Would you put it to the next? Next, yeah. So here we are on the Araguaia Corridor. It connects the Cerrado Savanna and the Amazon. And what we did is we took 20 kilometers left and right from the river itself. The total area is 2,600 kilometers, up to 40 kilometers or more wide. So it's a total area of 10.4 million hectares. And what we will do is to restore all the PPAs, as they call it in Brazil, the permanent preservation areas. Areas where water sources are there, along water, rivers, lakes, you name it. And in total, our goal is to restore 1 million hectares. And this is not a platform. No, we are the doers. So we are restoring with only native trees, and only these native trees which used to be there before it was deforested. And when we started, this is our 6th year of planting. We started with 18 different native species, and then we went up to 25, 45, and I think we are quite proud that today we are using 78 different native species to bring back nature. Keep in mind, this is what we do as humans is only the beginning, because once we have planted the trees, then 2-3 years later, nature comes back in magic form. But this is just to give you one idea. So this gives you a video of explaining a little bit where is the corridor, what happened to it, what happened to these areas 50 years ago, and that you can see how large the Cerrado and important Cerrado is. So in total, there are 13,580 landowners. to pause it. I think many of you always hear very negative stories about Brazil. Oh, the farmers destroy more forest, or the government has destroyed more forest. But does someone know that Brazil actually has the best environmental regulation, maybe in the world, as you know, so the environmental legislation determines that you have to restore 25% in the south, 35% of your land for nature in the middle, I'm generalizing, and 80% even in the north. So here in Holland or in Europe, everyone is talking about, oh, we have to bring back biodiversity, maybe 5% of the land has to be back nature. So here we talk about 35% and 50 and 80. So that's why the landowners, the farmers, are doing already many amazing things. But that's not good. Good news is no news. So you don't hear too much about it. So that's why we are, as an institute, also quite practical. So we love the trees, but also we are realistic. So at the same time, the whole world with 8.5 billion people, we need to eat. And one of the largest production centers for food is the Cerrado. So we cannot just go to the farmers and say, your 10,000 hectares or 5,000 hectares farm, make it all green for the world. No, they already preserve 35% or 50%, and Black Jaguar Foundation supports and helps these farmers, small, medium, and big, to comply with the environmental legislation. So you can say, oh, but the government should do that. On that element, the government made amazing law, but the enforcement of the law could be a bit better. Let's put it in a polite way. But we come back to that point later. Yeah. So before we started execution of this massive project, we actually invested more than 6 years in research, because it's such a huge enterprise. And I'm not a restoration specialist, as my dear friend here. So I realized that you have to have the right research done and the right scientific backing. So we had one of our elements is we did a green capital study by 12 scientists, worked almost for 1 year to calculate the total cost of the project and also the total income. So the income of the project, and this excludes the element of water. So the total cost might be around 9 billion, but if we don't take action, the cost for the planet is over 17 billion, excluding the element of water. Yes, we don't have the map in front, but in the Araguaia River is the 4th largest river in Brazil. And in the north, it has a big hydro dam. It's called the Tucury Dam. The Tucury Dam provides over 30% of electricity of the north of Brazil. Can you imagine what with the climate crisis today, the water levels are going down and down and down. So that's why we were really happy to take this beautiful invitation to speak to you about Partners for Water, because actually our project is not only a biodiversity, but actually a water corridor. Because if we do not plant these 1.7 billion native trees, the water levels will keep on going down. And what will happen to the Tucury Dam if the water levels are completely down? There will be no electricity. It will be a true disaster for all central Brazil. Because without water in a river, and you are more realistic, but many people don't believe the consequences of the climate crisis until they see it. And we work with very conservative farmers. Actually, most farmers in Brazil are conservador, let's put it this way. But even 2 years ago, it was the first time ever that I could cross the Araguaia River in the dry season by car. And normally in the dry season is 8 meters of water. So can you imagine the consequences for the agro sector? So everyone got a shock. And they start to see, oh, maybe preserving the water sources on our farm, maybe is very important, not only for the future, but also for my own farming today. So what started as a restoration project and planting one with the goal to restore 1 million hectares or 1.7 billion native trees. But what I did not see is that it became a very much of a social project, to a happy surprise. And now in our 6th year, we have over 200 people full-time employed, directly and indirectly. And it's amazing how we can make people proud again. And there's so much knowledge in the communities. And all of a sudden, these people in the communities don't need to work anymore for the farmer or something because of the heavy industrialization. They don't have a job anymore, but they have a lot of knowledge of the forest. So now we can hire them and train them to become an official seed collector, or work in the nursery, or work in the maintenance. And it's amazing to see these people. They become proud. They have better income than before. So I think it's a win, win-win-win. So over 70 native species, and I will come to the next slide. We just want you to know that these are the impacts of ecological restoration. You know, it improves biodiversity, helps mitigate climate crisis, quality of the air, jobs, soil health, and of course, water. Right? So we can go on. This is the Green Capital Study. It's our planning. So we are 4 years behind schedule. But I hope after this meeting, we get so much more support from RTO and all the other ministries that we can get it in. And can you go next? So this is our phase 1. Here's where we start the first pilot projects, expansion of 200,000 trees, 1 million and 2 million trees. So we planted so far 1.2 million native trees, and next year we'll complete the first 2 million. Now, out of 1.7 billion, you might think it's super low, but in Brazil, in the remote areas of Brazil, it's not so easy. We are here to bring back healthy, could you put next? Healthy quality forests, and maybe also next. And quality for us is number 1, and quality restoration is also number 2. All our partners who are not interested in quality restoration and say, oh, it's too expensive. We say in Portuguese, muito bem, vamos tomar um cafezinho e depois, tchau, tchau. Because we are here to talk about nature. If it's a €7 or a €10 or a €4 per tree, the value cannot count it even in money. So quality is number 1. And if we, as humans, work hard for 3 years with the right science and the right dedication, nature will come back as never before. Biodiversity is coming back as never before. As your common friend, Professor Carlos Nobre, one of the Nobel Peace Prize winner, he's one of our ambassadors. We are very honored. And he said that after 5 years, even up to 60 to 70% of the biodiversity can come back. Can you imagine? So we are very good in destroying it, but if we help it and restore with quality, then 70% already back to 3 and 4 years. And this just gives an example. The soil is super fertile. And here you don't see much capim, like the wheat, but the wheat is everywhere in Brazil. It's called like elephant grass, high grass. The Europeans brought it for all the cattle farming. And it grows faster even than the little trees. So we have to do the maintenance. And we don't have robots or other machines because it's handwork and it's costly. But we only have to do it until the leaves of one tree touch the leaves of the other tree, right? Then the sun doesn't reach the ground anymore and the weeds stop growing. And we as humans stop working as intervention and nature will come back as magic. Unfortunately, our work is really rewarding. Sometimes in 6 months, trees are already 1.5 meters, and sometimes already birds, small birds obviously, make a small nest in 7 months' time. Oh, so when we hear about the invitation of biodiversity and water, yes, I think, yes, this is what gives us energy. So maybe next. So with our scientific team of forest engineers, in the past 4 years, we have developed our restoration cycle. And I thought planting a tree is just, planting a tree and doing some maintenance. And then we had 12 steps in our cycle. And then we learned, oh no, if we don't bring in the fence for the cows, so the cows cannot enter the area, that's a must. Oh, logistics is a huge task. So right now we have up to 17 steps of the full cycle. But if we take care of all these 17 steps, then it's super fine. Maybe we have to add one more. It is the audit of our field work. So we can tell you we planted 1.2 million trees, and we have our accounts. Even though I think you must know, even though we are an NGO, a charity, we have only maybe 200 people employed and up to 2 or 4 or 6 million of income or 8 million. We have to act almost like a super multinational, so professionally, because everything has to be transparent, of course, and all our accounts are being audited by Baker Tilly, it's a respected audit firm. But in the future, we will also have a third-party field audit. So then we have 100% proof, okay, we have done 1 million, this is the result. So if you go next, we will just fly through community and science. Everything starts with community engagement, landowner partnerships. So I always mentioned that before. We are not against the farmers, we are with the farmers. We are very realistic. We even respect the farmer that they already restore so much of their land. So it's not the right wing, I think it's more practical. And step by step, we ask the farmer to contribute, to pay for all these 17 steps. But they are very conservative. So first we have to build that trust, because one after the other NGO, especially from the US or from anywhere in the world, passes by, promises the world, and then they realize, oh my goodness, this 8 hours by car to the next village is super hot, it's far away, there's no hospital. 1 year, sometimes 2 years maximum, and they're gone. And then they have left an image of NGOs so negative. So that's why we are really there to stay. We want you to really know that we are the work bees. We have our boots only in the ground. We have our operations there, 17 steps. And we have a small office in Amsterdam, Sao Paulo, Switzerland. And our castle, so-called castle, is in the field. And I think this is the way it should be. So going quickly through, our restoration model consists of the community engagement, landowner partnership, fire brigade. So we train the municipalities, environmental education. Last year we gave education to 1,670 kids below 10 years. It's amazing for them to really start to feel the importance of restoration. We have our own mapping and validation department, biodiversity planning, because every 20 kilometers is a different mix of native trees. And you have like the hele iep, yellow Ipe amarelle, but you might know better, but I learned that there are 7 subspecies of yellow iep. And one side of the river is subspecies 3, and the other side of the river, subspecies 5. And then the government of Brazil is very strict that you cannot replant the wrong tree, which is fine, but just to give you an idea of the complexity. Scientific partnerships, evidence-based restoration. Next. We have our own tree nurseries. So we started with one nursery with 10,000 trees capacity, then 50,000. And then 3 years ago, we were able to build our latest nursery with a capacity of 500,000. And we'll show you a few pictures there. Seed collection, soil preparation, fence construction. Of course, not a fence like this, but just a fence to keep the cows out. Logistics, and that's really a big job as well, because we work down in 7 municipalities, and the Brazil government is very strong in, fortunately, to protect the workers. So for some, we have to provide shade, good quality lunch, you name it. But if we have like over 30 locations of restoration in 7 municipalities, we have to provide them a lunch and a shade and cold water. Yes, we want to be really a good employer, but it's not so easy to meet all these standards. But fortunately now in our 6th year, more people come to Black Jaguar. They call us Black. They don't say Black Jaguar, Black, because we get known as more like a respected organization. Planting the trees and the seeds is just one of the 17 steps. So, and the 3-year maintenance, as I said earlier, is critical. Up to 20 years of monitoring and fire prevention. So I think before you leave, that you at least know Black Jaguar Foundation is about action, and it's about hope and implementation. And that in 20 years, I hope we can all look back and say, oh, you know, I contributed already 1,000, or maybe together with all the ministries, 1 million or maybe 1 billion native trees to this mission. Okay. So this is how it looks. This is an area of, here is a lake. There was nothing, and then farming. And just in a matter of 1.5 years, we put the fence, for cow fence, we planted there over 25 different native species. And it's like, I think it's quite magic. You know, you can, 2 years later, you cannot, you really need a Ongafa, you need a big knife to get through. So this maybe shows the reality. And here the work continues. Then next, I don't fly through, also the video we'll fly through, because otherwise we won't have the time. Maybe later we'll show you this video, because now we don't have time. This gives you an impression of the real work, where we work, how we work. But we've only 10 minutes, right? So then we fly through. That's okay. Just to give you an idea on the different techniques. So planting a tree is just one of the 5 techniques. I thought before I started with Black Jaguar Foundation, this is the only way. But then Muvuka is direct seeding, and we introduced that in the Cerrado area, and fortunately with big success. So basically you mix different seeds together, and we spread the seeds directly on the land. And around 2,000 trees will naturally come out. Densification, enrichment, and natural regeneration. So these are the 5 methods of restoration we carry out. This is a picture of the latest nursery, and we are quite proud of it. We have a big warehouse, special storage for the seeds, because some of the seeds need to be stored in dark, some of the seeds need to be stored in the air conditioned pool area. Then we have the indoor and the outdoor part. And yes, this looks nice, but this was built. This is the picture after just 1 year. Then a big storm came. And we were hit by almost like a hurricane, and 40% was destroyed. So it's also learning. So we reached out to our sponsors. At that time, we didn't know RVO yet. Next time, definitely we'll reach out to you. And fortunately, they helped us to rebuild it. And the land is 3.6 hectares. And we were given this land by the municipality for 10 years. But now we want to make a real investment to further improve it. We want to go completely off-grid, because we don't want to pay the electricity. And we want to have a huge water reservoir, because our water pumps in the nursery are not deep enough anymore, because the water levels, even in our nursery area, are going down. So we have to make a serious investment. And then we try to ask the municipality, the mayor, and the city council, could you give us an extension of 10 years more? And he proudly said, no, in Portuguese, they're all politicians. We don't give 10 years, we'll give you 20 years. Because they see that we start to employ many people, and that they see we are friends with the agro and with nature. So maybe next picture. And then this was last month. Even Mr. André Driessen was there, and some of the city councils. So here we signed the extension for 20 years. So you see, we have to get the local people, the municipalities, the state people, and federal. And for sure, I think Brazil is one of the more challenging countries of Latin America. But now that we got through for the first 6 years, we start to build up trust. And I think, how do we win trust? Very simple, by doing what we promise. Been tough for a long time, and everyone knows it's quite a lot of challenges, and that we exist in 6 years, they start to help us and approach us. So next. We will go through it, unfortunately. Yeah, maybe we can go show it with lower volume. You cannot hear. He's explaining that if you can see the biodiversity coming back, if the restoration site is healthy, whether the new trees or new trees from will come back. And here he's showing that already different species of trees are coming back into the forest. And this is after 1 year and a half. You can see the size of the tree after 1 year and a half. So I think it's also amazing how fast it will go. But we do not say that we know everything, because we know, I think, only little. Because we are learning every time. We make mistakes a lot. We think now with 78 species is good, but we are learning every time and to further improve. But we know now that with our technique and quality of restoration, that really the biodiversity is coming back. Of course, we can fly through. I already explained that we really do it with farmers and that we offer technical and financial support. Yeah, next. And of course, for the farmer itself, we help them meet the environmental regulation. We help them protect their water sources, critical. We help them for the cross-pollination for their crops and the rain cycle. And I don't have time now, but it's very interesting how the market takes over the role of the government to implement the environmental regulation in Brazil. So the buyers of, say, soy only buy the soy if the farmer meets all the environmental regulation. The banks only give good loans and quality loans, cheaper loans, if the farmers meet all the environmental regulation. So in that way, it's a great, good mix. Yeah. This is one of the 17 steps, and we set up our own cooperative, coöperatie, of seed collectors. And here we started because we use a huge amount of native seeds. We used to buy them, and then we thought, oh, but there are so many communities in this area. So we hired an amazing lady called Lais, with experience in indigenous and local communities with restoration. We built a training manual 3 years ago now, and we went to the first community, and the first, again, distrust, but then the first 10 people start to work for Black Jaguar Foundation, and it's like really amazing, because they get a 2 weeks training, they already have so much knowledge, and they know exactly when to collect the seeds from which tree. And if we have good quality seeds, these seeds go directly to our nursery. It has a bigger chance that this little seed becomes a healthy tree. So it's good for the community, good for biodiversity, and it brings quality trees. So, and we are really pro women, for women empowerment. And in 24, we have last year 76 active seed collectors, and today we have over 110. And now there's a queue of people wanting to become a seed collector. So we had, for example, Mr. Tom Rennickmeijer joining our field trip. Of course, the seed collector had no idea who this man was, and he's 2 meters 2. And the lady said, "Oh, I don't know who you're up there." Yes, but you see that little house? Yes, this little house I built with the funds, the money I gained from Black. And I wake up every morning proud because I will restore the world, he said. Of course, she's not restoring the whole world, but it makes her more proud. It gives her a value in life. So. Okay, this is a long video, but it gives you a little touch. Maybe next. This is one of the pictures of the team. And I think it's important, as I said before, we are our own team. Yeah, so we are not on the 17th floor somewhere in New York, Sao Paulo with a platform. No, if you want to approach us, we are in Santana de Araguaia. Yes, we have our own forest engineers and implementers. And I think and team to connect with the farmers and local communities. That makes it more complicated, but also more, I think, satisfying. This is an idea of the first 105 corporate partners. And we started with small companies with contribution of 5,000 and 10,000. And step by step, we go up. and from Dutch banks. I think one of the prestigious honors is that we was chosen to become partner with the Caixa Econômica, like the federal bank of Brazil, and they're extremely bureaucratic and not so easy to get through their due diligence. And in 2022, we got the first 4 million euro partnership. And this opened the doors to others and others. Maybe next. And maybe if you go back, here you can also see that the Dutch embassy in Brazil in December, thanks to one of you, also approved one grant. And we are very proud that also, if you enter the embassy in Brasilia now, of course, you still see flag. Then in the lobby, boom, this same map, but then 3 meters long. So maybe next. Here's one of the Dutch organizations. So it's an organization, company De Heus. They produce feed for animals. It's an agro company. They have been in this business for 100 years. So we cannot tell them to change and do a complete different business, but we can ask them to really try to work in the most sustainable way. And they have 15 programs they support, and we are one of them. We are one of the 15. So we are not just the only charity or institute they support that could be like linked to greenwashing or whatever. No, they have a full sustainability agenda, and we are part. And this is a picture after 3 years and a half. I think this is the trees we planted with the team of the house. And in 3 years and a half, you can climb your own tree. I think that's a very good commercial, right? And what you can see is, but like your friend will explain, you won't see any camping anymore. No wheat anymore on the moor. And that proves we as humans have done our job. And then we can move to the next. And then last year, and this year we were nominated by the Earthshot Prize. And we were chosen to be one of the ecosystem of large mega eco projects in the world. Of course, there's no competition. I mean, I hope that this is the start of thousands of such corridors. And there's some of our ambassadors from the Netherlands and of the US. And then we are proud that dear friend, Professor Carlos Nobre, became ambassador last year at the World Economic Forum. And he has over 40 years of scientific experience. It's amazing. He won a Nobel Peace Prize with his work for his work. And it's an honor to be connected and to have him in our team. And this was last year, how we started the partnership with McKinsey and with UBS. Yeah. And now we are on their preferred list of UBS Bank. They have a big foundation. And they have an impressive foundation, let me put it this way. And now we are approved after 6 months of due diligence again. So really, as a charity, as I said before, what we have to do to meet all these requirements is quite intense. But now we are on the second page of their portfolio, and this goes out to all their philanthropists, which is super nice. And for each donation above 500,000 euro, UBS will always match with 10%. And there's no upfront. So in the next time, if we would be maybe honored to receive another grant, if we can pass it through UBS, then already the first 10% extra is gained.
Can you go to?
Yeah. Okay, that's next. This may be the Dutch ambassador and Emil Mulder, the biodiversity chief of Latin America, which I like a lot. They come to visit us, and then they can really see what we are doing instead of presentations and PowerPoints. And here is Emil and Marco van der Rey, proud member of our team, and André Driessen and the team. This is where we are going again. Maybe you can go next. So we still need funding for sure. And for 25, we still need 5.1 million. I think we make a good chance to get that. And then we go to reach for another 56 million euros. With that, we have then sufficient funds to reach to plant the first 10 million trees. Once you have done 10 million trees and we've maybe employed, say, 500 persons, I think we have a nice base. You have to say, okay, we have learned so many lessons. Now we are ready to scale. Because it's not so easy. It's bien complicado. And once we have completed here, we go on holiday for 2 days, and then we go out to the market to get 780 million. So in case you forgot how much we need, it's 5 and then 56. Okay, so not yet 560. Maybe next. This is our annual report. It's online by audited, and we're happy to share it with you. And I hope I did not spend more than 30 minutes. So I'd like to thank you. I hope you got the first impression of our mission of hope and action. And I hope, like Julia, that you all will become part of our mission. Either it's with 1 tree, because you can also donate 1 tree, yes, 1,000, or I hope together many more. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So our next speaker is Marielos Peña Claros. She is professor in the ecology of managed tropical forest at Wageningen University. Welcome, Marielos. She's a forest ecologist working at the Forest Ecology and Forest Management Group at Wageningen. And she's also co-chair of the science panel on the Amazon. And in her work, she investigates how forests are responding to a variety of human disturbances and on ways to accelerate forest recovery. So please, warm welcome for Marielos.
Yeah, good afternoon to all of you, and thank you for being here, and thank you for the invitation to be part of this lunch seminar. I learned so much when you talk, and I see so many connections with the work that we are doing as a science panel for the Amazon. I think that's really very inspiring. So today I will be talking about large-scale forest restoration in the Amazon, opportunities and strategies, and I will be talking about that from the point of view of the science panel for the Amazon. Next slide. So I thought that it may be also important to explain what is this panel about. So we were established in September 2019. Maybe some of you familiar with Brazil will remember that year there were tremendous forest fires, both in Brazil and Bolivia. And there had been a meeting with Amazonian presidents in Leticia. And basically these two things put together with a group of 40, 60 researchers working in the Amazon decided to create the science panel for the Amazon. And we are convened under the auspices of the Sustainable Development Solution Network from the United Nations. Yeah? You know all the 17 goals, so we are part of that movement. And our mission is to synthesize and communicate scientific knowledge about the Amazon integrated with indigenous and local knowledge to accelerate solutions for sustainable and equitable development. So we don't do research ourselves, we actually bring together research that has been done by others, and we try to combine that information with indigenous knowledge as well. The next one. So we are the first high-level regional scientific initiative dedicated to the Amazon. We have inspired similar initiatives for the Congo Basin and for Borneo as well, who are producing at this very moment the first assessment report on what is the status of those forests respectively. At this moment, we are about 300 researchers. Most of us are from Amazonian countries, about 70%. And we are proud to say that because we really wanted to have this as a movement from the Amazon. We do collaborate with a lot of international researchers that work as well in the Amazon, but we are very proud to have a lot of Amazonian researchers. And we also include 14 indigenous scientists, and that is a number that we have a strategy aiming to increase that number because we see that they do have a lot to contribute in terms of the work that we do and the recommendations that we give. So we have a strategic committee, a science steering committee, and recently, since September last year, we also have a youth advisory committee, which basically aims really to bring the voice of young people to the panel and also to help us disseminate the word by using many other different techniques that what we established researchers or more older researchers use. So they are really very much in social media, TikTok, Instagram, and so on. Very creative people, but young people with an amazing trajectory. It's really incredible to see what they have done so far. Next one. So we started in 2020 working on the first assessment report on the Amazon, which was launched in 2021 in the COP at Glasgow. And this is these are the three parts of our report. Basically, what is the beauty of the Amazon, what are the threats of the Amazon, and what are the solutions that we can think about based on research, because we didn't want to, so this is similar to the IPCC, but it's not an intergovernmental panel. So that's a large difference, and we wanted also to really focus on solutions. So this is a report of about 1,000 pages, which is humongous. I think nobody really printed this. And this is the summary of the 1,000 pages in the 4 recommendations. So stop deforestation in areas that are approaching a tipping point, so areas that are really very much deforested with a lot of fire and so on. And we recommend for zero deforestation, zero degradation, zero wildfires by 2030 in the whole basin. And this is the link, and I think the reason for me being here is the urgent need to restore terrestrial and aquatic ecosystems. And we also propose to come a vibrant bioeconomy based on healthy standing forests and flowing rivers. Yeah. So next one, we have also produced since then a large number of policy briefs on very specific topics, trying to provide policy recommendations to policymakers. And we have been in many of these large meetings, like the COP16 on biodiversity, several of the climate change UFS meetings as well, and in the anyway, you get the point. And I wanted to bring this slide as well, because the Amazon really plays a key role in maintaining the general and global climate balance and the maintenance of biodiversity. And I think that a lot of us know that the Amazon is extremely rich in biodiversity. About 13% of the planet's biodiversity is in the Amazon. And that is due to the fact that the Amazon is not just one type of forest. It has more than 50 different terrestrial and aquatic ecosystems. So this large diversity is due to this large diversity in ecosystems as well. Yeah, and we also know that the Amazon forest is very important for climate change mitigation, because it stores a huge amount of carbon in the forest. Yeah. And what I wanted to bring attention is to this fact, because I think that a lot of us, that counts for me, is that the Amazon really plays an incredibly important role in the water cycling and in the humidity transport for the whole continent. So basically, the water from the Atlantic Ocean evaporates, it falls, it is recycled, falls again, goes to the Andes, and then it goes south, and it rains through the mountains. It rains northern Argentina, southern Bolivia, southern Brazil. So it has all that water that is coming from the Amazon is actually crucial for the southern part of South America, which is where a lot of agricultural production is being done. So the Amazon is really very important for this water recycling. Something I learned last week: 85% of the water that is consumed in Quito, 85% comes from the Amazon. Bogota has been, we had last year, for 2 years in a row, extreme drought events, like you were mentioning, Ben, in the Amazon. What happens? Bogota, for almost a year, with shortages of water. People have to be regulated, and you don't get water every year. 6 months, 3 to 6 months in Ecuador, in Quito, without electricity, because the electricity that is used in Ecuador is coming from dams that comes from Amazonian waters. So the impact of losing that connection between forest and water is just tremendous. And I think that it's only now that we are trying and starting to understand this. And I think that makes efforts of restoration even much more important if we think about the connection to water as well and the need to maintain that connectivity throughout the whole system. The next one. But as you all also know, there is a lot of problems in terms of wildfire, illegal activities. And here I want to mention that about 18% of the Amazon is deforested. Those are the, is deforested. Those are the pinky, I put it the other way around. The pink color that you see, and if you can see from the back, there are also some black dots, that's degradation. About 18% of the Amazon is degraded. So most of those deforestation are actually illegal activities. So a recent study by Bernardo Flores and co-authors showed actually that the Amazon is moving towards a critical condition of degradation. So basically what they did for this study, they put many different layers, one on the top of the other. So they put deforestation, they put fragmentation, they put roads, they put changes in temperature because dry seasons are becoming longer, precipitation is decreasing, and then they put the layer of protected areas and indigenous territories on that. And the sum of that is this map. And the more red, orange you see is the higher the probability of those areas going from an amazing forest to a different type of ecosystem because we are pushing it too much. Yeah. So it's a combination of climate change, deforestation, and other human activities. And you see that there is not really much to be hopeful. So we do need, next one, we do need to take quite some actions in that sense. So back in 2022, I think 2022, we produced a policy brief that was called Transforming the Amazon Through Arcs of Restoration. And basically, this policy brief was stated that there was a critical need for large-scale restoration to maintain these forest rainfall feedback mechanisms I was talking about a minute ago, and to maintain the connectivity from the Andes and Amazon. So the connectivity within the Atlantic, the Amazon, and the Andes, because our rain depends on that. And that area with higher levels of deforestation, here in Brazil, that area is actually called arcs of deforestation. We coined a new name and we say, well, let's transform those arcs of deforestation in arcs of restoration. And this policy brief was extremely well received, and the Brazilian government launched in 2023 the arc of restoration, which is supported by the Brazilian Development Bank. And they really are now going into a second phase in which indigenous lands or indigenous territories are getting land to money, some funds, to restore their deforested, degraded areas. Next one. So there are many opportunities where restoration can take place. And this is something very similar to a graph that you were looking into what techniques you use. Here, what I'm doing is, this is land use change from low to very high, and the opportunities that we have. So in some areas, there have been areas that were in protected areas, maybe a wildfire came once, maybe there are areas that were cut and nothing happened. So that will require a different strategy of restoration, so probably more the natural natural regeneration that Ben was talking about, than areas that are sustainable, that require really a very intense type of restoration. Here we have 24 million hectares in the Brazilian Amazon of degraded forest. 24 million hectares, that's a huge amount of land. So there is a large opportunity here for restoration, maybe not restoring a forest, but maybe also restoring some of the productivity of the land for other uses. But that requires a much more intense kind of restoration. Next one. So this is to show that scaling up restoration will require then different strategies that are appropriate to the ecological, social, and cultural context. And for example, in the Brazilian Amazon, 0.8 million hectares of that could be restored are indigenous land. But these areas are surrounded probably by forests. The areas that are deforested are smaller. So probably, so that situation is very large when you go to the 19 million hectares in private properties that actually have been very much deforested and soils very much degraded. The next one. So last year, we launched another policy brief that focuses on strategies for implementing and scaling up forest restoration in the Amazon. And basically, we focus on, we highlighted the diversity of ecological and socioeconomic conditions that the diversity of ecological and socioeconomic conditions of the Amazon requires multiple restoration strategies tailored to local context. Basically, what Ben was saying with the 5 restorations. So here we focus on these 4. So we say, well, if you want to restore the functioning of the forest, then we should probably go through natural regeneration or seed and seedling planting. And this is because we have a forest that is producing some of the seeds. So we intervene on that, but not as much. And we can restore really the functioning of the forest, also the services like water and so on. But we also focus on 2 other options that are more into production for goods for humans, let's say. So agroforestry systems and biodiverse and productive plantations. Next one. And as you will see, they differ in ecological benefits, the social and economic outcomes, and yet also they differ in the cost. In the costs that are related to their implementation. So next one. And I don't know how much you can see from the back, but here we have, so the different restoration strategies will have also different socioeconomic benefits. So here we included benefits, ecological, economic, and social benefits. And each of these bars is one of these systems, yeah? So this is not based on numbers, because as Ben was saying, we still lack a lot of research. So what we did for this is we sent a questionnaire to several people and experts, and then they made this valuation, yeah? So then we say, for example, that in terms, if you want to recover vegetation structure, then you should go for natural regeneration, seed and seedling planting. But if you want to have to work more on food security, sovereignty, then maybe you should go for an agroforestry system, yeah? Because then the benefits in any of these categories that they deliver varies quite a bit. And also the enabling conditions that allow their implementation will also vary depending on the approach that you take. Next one. You can go next one. So these are the recommendations that we came. So for the implementation, I think that we need to use these 4 ecological restoration strategies. And I see a lot of basically our strategies that we are talking, they basically overlap. So the ones that you are mentioning basically overlapping our 4 as well. So that's nice. Something that you also mentioned is very important to develop a supply chain for the production of native species and seedlings, because this is key and it's extremely difficult to do. So we really need a lot to develop these supply chains. It creates a lot of social benefits as well, promote engagement, training and knowledge integration. But this is really the key for any restoration effort that you could do. In terms of policy, we need to strengthen public policies and governance, promote the conservation of secondary forests, because these secondary forests are basically a natural restoration, if you want to say, and we need to promote that they are not cut every 5-7 years as it occurs at this moment. And we need to promote different ecological restoration strategies that are really aiming to restore the functioning of the forest. If I hear options of having really reforestation efforts done with very few species. So often exotic species, I really get the quibbles because that will not recover the functioning of the forest. And we need that to make sure that we maintain all the services that the Amazon forest delivers. And then for finance and mechanisms, we really need to ensure mechanisms of flexible financing that includes all phases of restoration, because it's not something that you go, you plant, and you go to the next place. It really needs maintenance, it really needs monitoring to be sure that it's working. And one option to do that will be to also mix in the set of species that you're using for restoration, species that can be used for developing also the economy of the area. So think about planting species that can be used by people. Next one. So just my contacts, and the next one is that we also developed these 1,000 pages. Nobody really wants to read them, isn't it? So we also developed a massive open online source, which is freely available, and I put there as well the QR code in case you are interested. And if you are happy to to help us spread the word about the course. Thank you.
So we go swiftly to the Q&A. So there's question time for you, but there's also question time for people online, right? Yeah, I'm Lilian Geerling, by the way. I work as coordinator for the Partners for Water program, and Claudia asked me to accommodate a bit of the Q&A session that we have right now. There's already
one question for clarification. You mentioned a lot the functioning of the forest.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean by the functioning of the forest?
What I mean is that the forest will be able to regenerate itself, so that you don't need to plant it every time, but also that it will enrich the soils with nutrients, that will also provide other ecosystem services like storage of carbon, recycling of water, nutrients, so that it will really work as a natural forest.
Can you say that after a certain amount of years, after replanting a forest, that the functioning of a forest is restored?
Depending on what aspect you use, we see that functions are being restored over time. So some functions are restored really relatively quickly. Others, they take much more time. So biodiversity, it restores in terms of number of species. If you're going to get the same composition that you have, that will take longer. In terms of carbon, that will also take longer. But we lack a bit of information specifically for restoration in the Amazon. So if we take secondary forests, we see that it is restoring. And also restoration efforts in the Atlantic forest in Brazil is showing that. And that functioning recovers faster when you use systems that are more towards the natural processes. So if you look into plantations of eucalyptus, it will restore carbon, but it will not restore the other things.
Yeah. Maybe in line to your question, I have a question for you, Ben. Is how do you measure the biodiversity of the areas you restore, and how do we measure it? Because I know someone in the room here were also in Cali at the Biodiversity COP, and there were huge discussions in the pavilion as well that we had there on should you measure the on landscape scale, or should you start counting species, or both, or yeah. And for some ecosystem evaluation, you do need some proof, right?
So now we are in our 6th planting season. So we have a protocol of 20 years of monitoring. In this monitoring is the analyzing of the biodiversity. So we only have started now 3 years. So right now we only count the species and the number. And now the next step is that we will also start to calculate or analyze which animals came back. It's not so much actually the big animals. It's maybe more important the small animals or the insects. The whole chain is going back. And So this is in process. So first we start about the number of species and the quantity.
You also look at birds specifically, for instance?
This will be our next step. So we have not touched the birds, not even the big animals. First we have analyzed which trees are coming back, and what's the survival rate, and how many different species are coming back. So that little video you saw is amazing. One tree, and then naturally 4 other native species were coming. So
Other species.
Other species.
Just than the planted tree.
yes, I think then we are doing something. So I also, all our team Black Jaguar get the shivers when we talk about planting eucalyptus, because I think it's nothing to do with nature. Actually, it is destroying nature.
Yeah.
But anyhow, I'm not here going against certain trees, but what's the use? It's this simple, it's a crop.
Yeah.
And nothing else. So let's focus about something positive about the indigenous trees.
Yeah.
And let's be inspired by Carlos Dover that one day we will restore over 100 native trees. And I think then we are only setting a base for the future.
Hmm.
Because fortunately thousands of other species come.
You said, okay, you chose the name of a big animal, right? The Black Jaguar in your foundation. I know in Colombia, we spoke to many indigenous people there, and we know they also use the Black Jaguar for ecological restoration. So they try to get the Black Jaguar back as well. But what I learned was also that it meant something different for different people. So it's not just the animal, but also the power that this animal has, the spirit. Is it the same in Brazil?
Oh yes.
So the meaning of the jaguar was.
Yes. Well, in my time that my full-time employment was to see Black Jaguar, and then in each village, the name of the Black Jaguar has already a different name, and the whole myth in each state is different. So you can write many books about only the myth of the Black Jaguar.
Yeah.
And sometimes some people think it's much bigger than the normal. Of course, everyone knows that a Black Jaguar is not a separate species. It is a spotted jaguar. It's a color variety.
Yeah.
But the real name of our foundation should be the Araguaia Biodiversity Corridor Foundation, Department of Ecological Restoration. So it's a bit difficult so it's a bit easier to remember Black Jaguar Foundation.
But I can also imagine it really, it reaches out to people. I mean, it connects to people.
Connects, yes.
Yeah.
But we are really, of course, it would be fantastic that many jaguars come back. But our real goal is to make an impact for your future child.
Yeah.
Of all the future. So.
You're right.
That is and also bit from the marketing point of view, 1 out of 1,000 persons in the world cares about an animal, whether it's a black jaguar or a giraffe or an elephant, but everyone cares about his own children. So we make the message, if you care about your own children, you better support the Black Jaguar or other initiatives for restoration of important ecosystems.
Okay, there's a question.
Yes.
Can you say your name? Sorry, and
Yeah,
where you're
my
from?
name is Stella Munninghoff. I'm from the Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security and Fisheries and Nature. I'm with the Nature Directorate. And I was wondering, I have a question for you, Ben. I was wondering about the model that you have with farmers, because you mentioned that they do see the value of investing in these projects because of water scarcity, for example, you mentioned. But there was also the regulations from Brazil themselves, the laws about having 25 or 35 or 80%. So I was wondering what is driving them in the end to participate in these programs. Are they and what's the financial situation? Do they pay you to come restore nature on their lands, or do they have another way of generating money for that, or how does that work?
Our goal is to first build a first community of the first 50 farmer partners, just to have a base. And the first 20, by far the most complex. And we started our work by just picking an area next to the Ilha Bananal. There are medium and large farmers. So now we work with over 40. And the model so far is that we offer almost all the 17 steps as a gift, and we ask them to only deliver us with equipment like tractors and labor. This is the first two. And now the big step, next big step would be to ask them to pay for the cow fence. And the cow fence, to give you an idea, last year we installed over 218 kilometers of cow fence. And in the next step is that we will ask the farmer to repay themselves, because it's an investment for their own farm. If they would sell the farm, actually it's an investment. And we do this service for them, but they do not get the carbon rights or biodiversity credits. We don't produce carbon credits because I'm not a fan of carbon credits at all, but at least we give the carbon communication rights to our sponsors. So the sponsors, for example, Shell, Movida, or others, they can turn their trees into a carbon project, for example, and the farmer doesn't get them. In the future, definitely, we have a bit more power towards the farmer. Say, hey, this is our track record. If we restore your land, you pay at least 50%. Because if they meet the environmental regulation, then they can finally get better loans from the banks, and they can sell their product, whether it's beef or soy or grain, to the buyer. And I hope in 8 years, hopefully there will be a queue. I hope the government of Brazil will be even very strongly enforcing the regulation, and that there will be a queue, and that all the farmers just pay 100%. And then we become only the implementers.
Because
Does that answer the question?
it is an obligation of the farmers to do that. I think it's 80% of the land needs to be forest in the Amazon.
Yeah, Amazon is 80, but in the area where we work is 35 and 50.
Yeah.
And basically work with the different municipalities, with the Secretary of Environment. They are the ones who fine the farmer if they really make a mess of the environmental regulation. So they indicate, go to that farmer, because they are really will get a big penalty. So the environmental secretary will tell the farmer, you get a big penalty, but also we have a solution. Because here we have Black. And be fast, because now they offer 15 of the 17 steps as a gift.
So a lot of questions popping up. You have
Just maybe a small follow-up, because you did mention carbon credits and carbon communication, I think you called it. How do you view that? Do you see it as a potential source of income, or do you not want to touch it at all because of maybe
I am not a fan of carbon credits alone, but we did partner with an organization, a Brazilian entity, who makes one credit for 5 elements. So then we're getting a bit more excited. And carbon is only one of the 5. So it's biodiversity, soil, water, social, and carbon. So if you have an element covering it all, then it has a different value than eucalyptus plantation in anywhere in the world. Let's put it this way.
Yeah. I think Son was first. Son is from the same ministry. Also agriculture, fisheries, food security, nature.
Yes, indeed, and working in the international biodiversity team. I actually have a question for both of you. First for Ben, partly also regarding the carbon project element, because the thing that you're supporting farmers with is what they actually should be doing themselves according to the law, right? So how could anyone communicate about additionality if it's in theory not additional, because they should be doing it anyway? And actually 2 questions for you. And the second one, how do you deal with private owners that don't want to collaborate?
The farmers, as they know.
The municipalities. May I? And from my end, I was wondering what the uptake has been so far of the science panel for the Amazon, and to what extent you are also, for example, collaborating with IPCC or exchanging partners.
Ben can answer first. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, about the additionality, because the environmental law in Brazil is already so good, and this whole carbon credit regulation is not made in Brazil. It's created in the US or I think somewhere in Europe, where the farmer doesn't need to protect anything. So, of course, 1 hectare out of 1,000 is already additionality. But in Brazil, I think the way the whole system now works around is because the government doesn't really enforce too strong. They give the farmer a time span of 20 years to meet the environmental regulation. Then they consider any restoration in these 20 years as already additionality. It's super vague, but this is the reality.
Then in theory, a farmer could reforest the area
Uh,
and have your help to reforest it and then in.
Yes, but what we do is 90% of our work, we only, out of let's say 35%, we have two elements, the permanent preservation areas and the legal reserves, and 90% of our work is basically on the permanent preservation area. So all the trees planted on the permanent preservation area can only use indigenous trees, native trees, and two, you can never destroy, never remove one tree in the DPA. For sure, it's a gray area, but that's why we are not going to become a carbon biodiversity credit issuer, because we are the implementers. So we will partner with a well-respected organization who considers all the 5 elements. We don't need 100% of that income. We only get 30%. Super fine. It's better to have 30% and save. They do all this complexity, and it's a lot of money involved. And we can keep on all the money we would receive in the future. We can use it for restoration. That's the question. And what do we do with the farmer if he doesn't want to work with us?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Then it's too bad for the farmer. But today we offer 15 of the 17 steps as a gift, and the more we develop, and I hope the government will become a bit stronger, like in the south of Brazil. South of Brazil, the state policies are being implemented stronger, and there you already have some policies have a queue of farmers.
Do you see happening, for instance, you have an estate along the river here, and you have some there, and the farmer in between doesn't want to collaborate with you? Eventually, maybe in future, because his neighbors are, will he be enticed to also invest, or maybe seedlings start popping up at his farm?
But the reason that they do not collaborate is trust. We are only working to create trust. Because each farmer, it's like we are coming like a huge gift. One, it's very costly what we do. Two, they don't have the technical expertise. It's super complex. And these two elements they don't have, and we offer it. But sometimes we offer a bit too much. And Black Jaguar Foundation, Ringo, Hollandaise, are you not, well, are you from the CIA? Really, the most great, because we really get their environmental documents. You really go into the kitchen of the home. And so I think once we have 50 farmers, and then we're going to make an amazing, I think, documentary of how much nature farmers in Brazil already preserve, and how many corridors are already being created. So we put it on so you have the agriculture department that really will help the agriculture side to promote these farmers and that they're preserved. And I think that would also help. So I think it will be the first documentary that farmers in Brazil really preserve biodiversity.
First, the question that she asked to Maria.
Yes. I remember the second part. Yes, we do have authors that have been part of the IPCC reports, and also some authors that are part of the IPBS. We work a bit different because we haven't, normally the IPCC, they work on a report with this group of people, they work on another report with a different group of people. We decided to keep everybody on board because it's very hard to bring people together in the Amazon, and we felt that there was a need for a network. So, and I forgot your initial question.
What is the uptake?
I'm sorry?
The policy uptake.
Of the recommendations, you mean? I think It's extremely hard to monitor that, but I think that the arts of restoration that the Brazilian government has launched, that was really based on our policy brief 2022. And I think that also the discussion that is going on now in Brazil, but in many other, Colombia, Peru, on socio-bioeconomy, and some of the agreements on bioeconomy that were made for the meeting of G20 last year in Rio, they had elements of our policy brief on socio-bioeconomy as well. So that was really great. And we see several elements of our big report on the Belém Declaration that was launched in 2023 by the Amazonian presidents. But it's hard to really pinpoint, because at the end it's a whole discussion that we are creating, and then who owns what, it gets very blurry.
I think there were a row of questions. I couldn't see you at first, or he?
I have a question for Ben. I work at RBO, so with agroforestry, and actually my family-in-law has a big farm in Cerrado as well. They do have 20% native forest already, but I was wondering, do you also see, I see this in the Netherlands, once farmers start working with trees, they get excited about it once they see the benefits of trees. Do you also see farmers who want to actually have more than their legal requirements? So like maybe they're living certain kind of forestry and other productive systems, and you help them with that? That maybe further.
Yes. No, I think it varies from the size of the farm. So right now in the region we are, these are medium-sized and large farmers, and they don't care too much about the income from the forest, because it's not 20, there's 35% and 50%. That's still a lot, but there are other, say, 50% of production generate so much money that they only preserve because they have to, and they start to really see the importance to preserve the water sources. Otherwise, a farmer without water is no farmer, and they start to feel it. I think it's good that they feel it, because otherwise, keep in mind that the farmers in Brazil, the land is like a junkie, a drug junkie. Every year, more fertilizer, more minerals. And because the price of soy is so high, they can afford. And each year more. So at one point, I think the soil, but they have 3 harvests per year. 3 harvests per year. Every year. So I think at one point, the soil will say, thank you very much. So that is the reason they will restore that area. They will get more inclined to really see how important it is. Also, they become, the children of these big farmers become proud. Oh, our farm is part of the Araguaia Biodiversity Corridor. Oh, it will become visible in 20 years from the link. Huh? Oh, this is the way to support it. If we go a bit more north, just 300 kilometers north, gets the hilly, no more soy, smaller farm. And then we have the Amazon, and there you have 80%. Of course, then the agroforestry and the comes in. But to be honest, so far we are new to that. And in August this year, we finalized the study where we will build the second hub. So thanks to an amazing Dutch multinational bank, we are now able to build our second hub this year. So we will copy what we have today and copy it 400 kilometers further north. And then there's a completely different say mix of farms. And we like that because that's the reality. Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah. Thank you both, Ben and Maria, for this very interesting speeches, lectures, and presentations. Thank you very much. And I really recommend the Massive Online course. I took it a couple of months ago. It was really nice, with nice lectures by Carlos Noorden, and many other people, of course. It was fascinating to see how the Amazon has a very important play, not only for Brazil, but also for the other countries you mentioned, Colombia, Bolivia as well. Ecuador. That's from one side. The other side, I was always curious, if I understand correctly, your project, Ben, takes place or is being implemented in a PPA, right? A permanent protected preservation area, right? How much of the total area of the Amazon is a PPA? And to what extent can you draw, take some lessons or to use the lessons you have learned to other non-PPA areas in the Amazon? Could you elaborate a little bit on that?
Sure. The PPAs is only related to private land.
Right.
So indigenous land and national parks and public land is maybe even there, but we work only with private land so far. And within a private land, I would say the area has to be legal reserve or permanent preservation area. And you don't have the PPAs outside.
Okay.
So I would not know, but I know that within our corridor alone, we mentioned the total area is 10.4 million hectares. 1 million hectares is the deficit. So we only work with the farmers who have a deficit according to the environmental legislation. So it really makes sense. If you want to do something big and with results in Brazil, you have to go with the flow, with the law, with the politics, with the farmers. Otherwise, no. But just to give you, is 1 million hectares out of the 10.4 is the deficit of private land. That's what we communicate. But actually, shocking, in the indigenous lands, national parks, maybe another 1 million hectares is degraded. 1 million hectares or more is degraded in the Ilha Bandanal and other national parks.
Thank you for this clarification. Because we work, personally, my name is Bob Bourdavis, by the way. I work at RVO. I work for projects in Colombia. Well, for now it's enough to know. And we also are looking for the EUDR legislation that comes into place soon. We're also working on deforestation programs. So not that we stimulate deforestation, of course, but how to avoid deforestation in Colombia. So it's also very interesting for me to know. Also the opportunities of reforestation. For this insight.
I think there was another question.
Yeah, I had a question, but it's already been answered.
Okay.
So,
I have a question over here as well.
Yeah. Yeah, so no, to Ben, maybe which steps of the restoration cycle are most challenging? So is it the community, the science, or planning? What is the most challenging?
No, I can talk for 2 days. But also that is the reality. If we would say everything is easy, it's a lie. So we have challenges, for example, with implementing our work with the farmers. We need many lawyers to do this. Our contract was first 3 pages when we started. Now it's 15 pages. To give you an idea, one farmer says, the CEO of the farmer says, great, join us, make a partnership. The environmental department of the farm says, great. So then we are all set up. We have, say, many polygons in one farm. It's not just one area. That's already one complexity. It's not just one area. The PPA, there are many PPAs, many springs of water. So first of all, the complexity of logistics. That's one. 2, sometimes we have the farmers saying, the commercial department of the farmers, once we arrive at the farm, say, oh, but now you have to drive through the crops to reach that area, and you have to drive 10 kilometers or 15 kilometers through the crops to reach it. And it's just a crop, just by car. Not allowed. So many surprises, learning that implementing, making the right contracts is challenging. But once we have made this mistake, definitely we add another page to be future-proof.
Actually, I thought it was nice to see that you are really learning by doing. And well, and your lecture, but like you said, there's many overarching aspects, right? So from both from scientists as from learning on the ground, that yeah, we come to the same kind of conclusion. There's not like an opposite
Sure, sure,
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, so that's good to see.
That's nice, yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm not a scientist, but fortunately we have, so I'm not the smart one, but at least we have very smart people also in our team.
No, but it's nice
So
to
that's-
see both lectures how they really connect. I think you had a question? Yeah.
Yes, my name is Eloise van Houten and I work for the Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries, Food Security and Nature on international climate, biodiversity and forest policy, which means that I'm part of the delegation traveling towards the climate summit, which is taking place in the Amazon this year. And I was wondering what your expectations are for COP30 and Brazil's plans regarding forests and what outcomes of a climate summit would help protecting and restoring the rainforests, and if you have any ideas that you would like to share on that.
Yeah, we have, like, I think everybody, huge expectations for the COP30. We're bringing, we're going to launch a new assessment report at the COP, which we don't have the final title, but it's going to focus on socio-ecological connectivity. So we're going to look at different levels of connectivity, like in water cycling, but also connection of people and nature in terms of, for food, but also spirituality in terms of indigenous people and local people. And we're going to be working through this whole year trying to come up, trying that the Amazonian countries will form with a similar agenda to be able to push it forward at the COP. And what we really want to achieve, I think something that is extremely crucial is finances. And how are we going to fund all these amazing ideas that we are having to conserve the Amazon, because it's very costly. So I think that is one of the targets, is to really talk about the financial funds, and Brazil is pushing this Tropical Forest Forever Fund. So we hope that some of the negotiations will be able to lead to some of the agreements. And another important thing is for sure climate change. And how do we make sure that all of the different countries are going to meet the criteria for that? Because the impacts that we are seeing in the Amazon, part of it is deforestation, but part of it is really climate change. And we are very concerned with that, because it's something that even if the Amazonian countries will do the very best and they will implement everything we want, it still wouldn't be enough because of climate change. And that is very worrisome. So I think those would be if you will tell me two, I would tell you those two. And anything related to, how to stop deforestation, what is the pressure? Deforestation is driven by global commodities, soybean, cattle ranches. So it's a lot to do in that sense. And one thing that is coming up very clearly in our report and I think that we will need a lot of help, also a global help, is illegalities. So what we are seeing is that all these different illegal activities are extremely connected with each other. So there you have also a very clear example of connectivity, because they are financing each other. So you get drug trafficking. The money gets washed by buying illegally land, which is illegally deforested, cattle ranching, soybean, and then you clean your money. But that is also very much related to illegal mining for gold, which is causing really a tremendous negative impact on fisheries, on people, because of the mercury. And that all is very much connected with each other. So I don't know if you saw this recent study that there was done, I think, Brazil, Colombia, and another country, Peru maybe. They looked at different communities, and they found in 72% of that community there were clear signs of illegal activity. 72%. It's huge. So that is something also that we are extremely worried about it, because it's going to be very hard to deal with it.
I think I got a sign that we have to close off the lunch session. Thanks a lot, of course, to both speakers, Ben and Marielos. Maybe the last message was not so comforting for us, but good to keep focus on what we need to do here together, all of us. But I think the message of Ben was still helpful. Also the connection to landowners and working with them. the topic of the money, which was also addressed a little bit at the end. This Thursday at 4 at Invest International, we have a talk on from financing green to greening the finance with people from WWF, with an impact investor, with Invest themselves, and with someone from the Nederlandse Waterschapsbank. So if you're interested, it's free. It's also based on the podcast that we made with Partners for Water on this topic. So if you'd like to join that discussion, you're all invited there. Thanks, Claudia, for organizing this wonderful, inspiring lecture. And well, we keep you informed.
The recordings and the slides will be shared on the
Yeah.
Partners for Water site.
Yeah, so we have taped this. So if any of your colleagues still want to listen or see it, we will share the link. It will be on YouTube, and then the link will be made visible for everyone who would like to share. So thanks again for being here. Yeah, and thanks everyone.